happy to welcome you to Moore Summit Series Hotel Edition. My name is Márton, Global Head of Hotel and Leisure at Moore, and in today's panel, we are going to give you an insight into a range of hot topics from the world of hotel and leisure, starting from prevalent industry trends, followed by operational challenges and ESG in the sector. And I'm joined by three wonderful guests today: Jennifer Hogencamp, Alexa-Rae Hicks, David Jenkins. Welcome. Please, if you could give us a quick intro about yourselves.
Good morning. I am Jennifer Hogencamp. I am an audit partner from Citrin Cooperman, based out of south of Boston in the United States, and I focus on the hotel and hospitality markets.
Great. Welcome, Alexa.
Thank you. So my name is Alexa-Rae Hicks, previously Seba. I am the Moore Global ESG Project Manager running out of Moore, Johannesburg. I am an environmental and mining attorney and work in the corporate finance and transaction advisory services in Johannesburg.
Fantastic.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon from where I am in the UK. So I'm David Jenkins, the VP of Development covering Eastern Europe, let's call it, not the entire Eastern Europe, but certainly a large part of it, including the Balkans and CIS and that part of the country. I've been doing that for about 7 years. Been in the hotel business for longer than I would like to admit to on camera. So pleasure to see you all today.
Thank you all, and welcome again. With regard to the latest data available, the global travel industry continues to recover at a strong pace, exceeding initial expectations. Number of international tourist arrivals almost tripled in Q1 2022 compared to the same period in 21, and forecast for the summer is very, very optimistic if you look at flight bookings outperforming pre-pandemic levels by 25% globally. Hotel occupancies and ADR show considerable growth as well, with Middle East and North America ahead. Global hotel development pipeline remained strong throughout the pandemic, and in some regions, we are seeing even record volumes with this. I'm turning to David first. David, how is Radisson doing after the pandemic?
Hi. I would say our sort of the two key words we use are prudently optimistic. I think we've all the whole industry has suffered significantly in the last few years. We don't need to maybe repeat what's happened. And of course, with other events happening in Europe at the moment, there are some other issues to deal with. But in general, what we've seen is a very strong 2021 in some parts of Europe, and a very, very optimistic view on how we're going to end in 2022. Particularly in leisure, we've seen a very, very strong return to leisure, which is not a surprise, to be honest, in terms of people having sat at home or maybe been traveling to more regional, local destinations. There is a lot of built up and pent up demand for vacations. And we are seeing people even adding on 2 or 3 extra days to a business trip. The European travel in the region I'm in EMEA, has really recovered very strongly. We've certainly seen, in our case, a shift to, I would say, luxury as people are coming back. I think maybe there's people haven't been spending money, or there's a chance to treat yourself. And I don't think it's because rates are lower, they're not. I think we're seeing a very high ADR across key European destinations. So it's not really rate sensitivity and people getting cheaper hotels. It's not that at all. I think people are looking for a quality kind of almost lifestyle upscale 5-star experience. In our case, Radisson Collection, we've been seeing a lot of interest in that particular brand across Europe and EMEA and
absolutely.
The region.
And we see this actually throughout the whole globe. Jen, are the skies getting clearer in the US as well?
Absolutely. And I think, I'll piggyback off of what David had said. it's definitely optimistic. I mean, 2020 obviously was one of the worst in recorded history. So it's not hard to come back for the most part. 2021, doubled 2020. It's still not back to 2019 pre-pandemic, but it all depends too on geography, right? So there's certain locations, destination, leisure, resort locations that actually have doubled 2019. I had some clients that had phenomenal years and the ADR was better than they've ever seen. The lagging part is corporate and business travel in the US. There's still a lot of hybrid work environments. People aren't sure, if they're going to go back to work, and there's still some unease and unrest on how corporate America is going to deal with that. Some are forcing people back to work, which then I think will increase corporate and group travel. But that's the lagging market right now. The leisure resort markets in the U.S. are above and beyond what they were before. So similarly, that pent-up demand on travel and, if you're on the water near a marina or have a park, Disney or somewhere in the backyard, you're doing great and you're sold out, and the ADR and occupancy are through the roof. Unfortunately, in the office parks near airports, they're still lagging a little bit. So advanced bookings are up, international travel's coming back, but there is definitely a lot of optimism, and hopefully, I think overall, 22 and 23 are looking to be much better than they were.
Can I just add into that? I think it's actually, a very good point, Jen, is that we're seeing much more business on the books further out.
Right.
Than we have seen in the last 18 months. So people are getting more confident to make bookings further ahead. Whereas in the last sort of 8 to 12 months, it was very much last minute because nobody could trust there was a flight. Nobody could trust there wouldn't be a new restriction or a new closure. Right. So the guest is feeling a much more trust in the system. And then we're seeing much more business on the books, and we can start to yield and on all the nice parts of our business. And I agree as well that the business groups, of course, the MICE business is the last thing. That's what we need to kind of just seal the deal that isn't there yet.
So good to hear that. Alexa, is travel back in your everyday life?
So I definitely think, as mentioned, geographically, we're going to be seeing different trends. From a South African perspective, also where we have tourism as quite a high income aspect and as a sector, we are seeing it has opened up quite a bit, but particularly airlines have buckled under COVID from a South African perspective, which seems to be reviving now, but definitely a lot more easy open traveling, and traveling has become a lot easier with things such as having a COVID vaccination certificate, which makes it a lot smoother when traveling. So we're definitely seeing that opening up, and there are more routes that are becoming available, as well as a lot more advertising in terms of traveling again. So we hope to see that both travel coming into South Africa as well as travel from SA out is going to start increasing, and hopefully with the kind of settling of the uncertainties and the growth as depicted from Jen and David, that will be increasing as well into 2022 and 2023.
Absolutely. This is also, I think, harmonizing what we heard at DMG's Joburg Hotel and Hospitality Show just 1 or 2 weeks ago. So it's always good to have a diversified perspective. David, turn to you. Some hotel brands and segments seem to have been showing more resiliency throughout the pandemic. There is also a certain hype around the extended stay hotel segment. Was any of this reflected in Radisson's life and focus?
I think you're correct. Yeah, I think the service departments saw a possibly unexpected boom during this initial period of COVID. I think nobody really maybe expected it, and maybe they thought the entire business would collapse. But those properties did well. So as a company, we'd been investigating service apartments in any case. It's not an area we had a lot of growth in, but we've decided as a company to really make a focus. Having said that, we still have 60 service apartment properties in operation. So it's not a thing we haven't been doing. But we haven't created a separate brand. What we have is brand extensions. So, for example, Radisson Collection service apartments or Radisson Blue residences, either or service apartments or residences, depending on the type of deal or the exclusivity of it. So, city and resorts also. So we've certainly seen that, and we're certainly seeing our focus as a technical team and a branding team to really develop the offering of those service apartments, to look at what people are looking for in terms of, having hybrid meeting rooms or bedrooms where you can have a larger TV screen to do these calls from, for example, to have maybe more neutral backgrounds, and to maybe, going maybe away from the co-working that everyone was moving to in 2017-18, and more into having private spaces where you can go and work, as well as community areas within the F&B of those apartments. So it certainly has been a very big area. And as I mentioned earlier, the resorts and the sort of more lifestyle luxury, those are the three segments that are doing the best at the moment.
Just to explain a bit to our listeners, how would you describe what is the perfect guest profile of an extended stay hotel of Radisson?
I thought you were going to ask me what's the perfect guest. One with lots of money, yeah. No, look, I mean, we look at these things in different ways. Okay, so it starts with the investor. The investor will come and say, we have an opportunity. We want to develop service apartments as a separate unit, or within the hotel, or in addition to an existing resort, or we want to sell all the units and bring them back into the rental pool. Can you then manage them for us? There's many, many different types. Or there's going to be one tower where people are living, that'll be a residence. The other tower will be more of an apart hotel. So first of all, you have to understand what's the investor looking for, what's the demand. Again, is it urban? Are there lots of offices close by? You're going to be able to capture that office demand. Is it a resort? Then it's a very different story. That's more sale, lease back. Guests can use them 2 weeks a year, high season, 2 weeks low season. So it's not really a definitive answer to that question. But certainly we are seeing that what you can do as an operator is really drive a stronger GOP in those types of developments, because you're not turning around the guests every day. You're not cleaning the rooms every day. It's a different profile for sure. And what you usually end up with is a split between maybe 20% transient, 25% transient, maybe a 35%, 40% short to mid-term stay, 7-10 days, this type of thing. And then you maybe 20% at the end, long-term. And you tend to have this mix, because you're always going to have transient.
Exactly.
You're always going to have maybe long stay who take it for a year, but the big bulk tends to be the 7-10 days.
I believe the
urban
potential,
hotels, at least, yeah.
The potential of a stronger GOP is something that attracts investors' eyes for sure. But when it comes to cost, what you were mentioning, construction costs, and both construction costs and operational costs are both increasing.
True.
True. Are development pipelines facing strong headwinds?
I mean, our pipeline isn't. I mean, at the moment, we're planning to double the size of the company in the next 5 years through signings. That's significant. We're already number 2 in the world. Yeah, so it's a lot. It's a huge push to develop our brands globally. What can I say? You have to work within the markets. You have to look at costs, labor costs when you're operating a hotel, construction costs. We face these problems. We've always faced these problems. There's nothing unique about these problems today. But what we do as hotel companies, we always look at re-engineering or reworking our offering. If you look at the size of our hotel rooms over the years, generally the rooms have gotten smaller because we know from the investor perspective, you want more rooms in the box. You want to get more value for money. We've looked at, we lease many hotels in Europe, so we know the actual cost of developing, an FF&E program to change a hotel from a Park Inn to a Radisson Red or a Radisson Blue to a Radisson Collection. We've done it ourselves. We can pass on that learning to owners. And we're also looking at, we don't need 35 square meter rooms for Radisson Blue. It's now 28 square meters.
Exactly.
And these things are gradually done over the years. They're not necessarily knee-jerk to one particular situation, but as a general trend of value for money. We know that land gets more expensive. We know that if you're downtown in a city like, say, New York or London or even Budapest, we say to an owner, the room has to be 28 square meters. Well, it can't, because look at the cities, look at the space. So we take our brands and we try and work out more urban concepts for maybe 16 square meter rooms, but for the same brand. But you really work, because the guest doesn't mind. They know this, and you're giving the owner, the investor, you're working together to make that develop, to make that
exactly
deliverable.
I think at this point is also good to mention how investors, how good is it to use advisors in such an investment project. And we can say that we are quite happy that we could support some Radisson hotel investment and representing owners there, and of course, when we're talking about efficiency and development efficiency, it really comes down to what's the sweet spot in terms of square meters of rooms, and what's necessary and what's really unnecessary for owners when we talk about excessive planning of swimming pools and rooftop bars and so on and so on.
I mean, you will always have markets like Middle East or what have you that are specific, and some parts of APAC will be specific, but in general, if we're looking at Europe, the approach is very much working closely on cost containment and efficiencies.
And just to jump in on a kind of a U.S. spin on what David was saying, it's interesting because every property management company, hospitality management company that I've talked to is looking to double in the next 5 years. And I think that's created this, buy-sell issue, especially in the U.S., where, I think because of COVID, investors held money for a while, and there's a lot of money on the sidelines. Banks didn't want to take over, mortgages and didn't want to foreclose. So they were very lenient on, modifying debt agreements, but there's a lot of equity. And so they're looking for these, diamond in the rough kind of options to buy. And there's this, they want to sell high and buy low. And so we've got this real spread right now. A lot of money's out there. A lot of people want to buy. And so it's getting interesting, as interest rates increase, especially here in the U.S. as well. It's going to be interesting because I've even had unsolicited offers on properties that I work with from people that just want to buy and have to put those investment funds at work. So it's also happening in the U.S. where there's a lot of interest in growth.
A lot of investors were eyeing different markets, waiting for the big discount and non-performing loans. But actually, the reality has not lived up to the anticipations in terms of everyone's finding the best deal and
Absolutely.
the biggest
Right.
discount. So we'll see what the economic challenges will bring later this year and the inflation environment. But if I say that if hotel owners survive the pandemic, I'm sure they will survive anything from now on, basically. And not
I'll just say one point in terms of development trends is that we're seeing much more move to conversions rather than the big 5-year greenfield developments. We understand why. This is quicker to the market. There's maybe a lot of independent hoteliers out there now who would seek to work with a brand that hadn't done before, because post-COVID they feel that the reservation system, the guest awareness of their maybe COVID protocols, the ability to get into training programs, ability to get into procurement programs, the ability to cluster, the ability to really work on co-marketing and the strength of branding in certain countries is something that they're maybe feeling that more of a need to do than before COVID. And so from the hotel owners themselves through to the operators like us, the convert, and also the people financing it, it's a lot quicker and cheaper to convert.
To just plug into the
putting
background.
50 million down with huge funding, and those things still exist, but certainly at the moment we're seeing much more of that. That's hence our Radisson Individuals brand that we launched kind of at the beginning of COVID, of which we already have 45 of them signed.
Yeah.
So that's already been a success. So yeah.
And when talking about a project, the limelight certainly is on ESG, and not jumping too much ahead, but ESG principles become more and more prevalent. How do you see this, Alexa? Is this something that both existing and new owners have to consider?
Yeah, definitely, Martin. And I think based off of the hotels show that we were at 2 weeks ago, we were hearing also from GMs of Radisson in South Africa, as well as some of the other large hoteliers. And it became very prevalent, particularly from a South African perspective starting, is that in the construction phase, so building now, and understanding the elements of, let's say, E, so your environment, you have to be very careful in the construction phase about what you're doing from an environmental perspective, such as what type of solar are you using, what is your water retention. So that's becoming quite important, because the costs associated with taking an old building and transferring it into a newer building to keep up into line with those type of developments is actually too expensive for the hoteliers to transfer into that space. So it's very important from a construction perspective, if you're looking at building new hotels, to keep that E in mind. The next that we saw, and is also quite a strong foundation in ESG, is the S, which is social. And it was noted that the most important thing in the hotel industry during COVID was the internal S. So the social element within the hotels, the hotel staff, the people that were affected within the hotel due to the COVID pandemic and the lockdown, and the responses that the hotels had to the S element. So understanding what impact that the everyday life is going to have on their staff members, and understanding that their staff members are the heart of their business. So in a continuing phase, we're seeing that hotels are becoming more understanding that their staff form a very big part of their business plan. And then obviously the G, governance, is just understanding the elements that you put into place in your E and your S that will fall through in your construction phase or your operational phase. What are you doing to ensure the continuance of it? And what are you doing to ensure that you are keeping up to date with what is happening from a regulatory or a framework perspective, as we're seeing large push regulatory in the US through the SEC, and as we're seeing in the EU. So definitely something that's on the agenda, and definitely something that needs to be kept in mind in that constructions phase.
I think these are good news, and I believe that the hotel hospitality industry has been a strong player in the S due to international brands, trainings, starting from human trafficking, training for front desk colleagues to a whole list of other departments if the hotel. But when it comes to the E, I think there's still a lot of work to do when it comes to both construction and conversion. And naturally, if we talk about just food waste and many other things in operations, I'm sure that a lot of expertise is needed for the industry.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the elements that you've touched on is such as food waste, and it's not just environmental impact necessarily, as hotels will just say, okay, let me put some solar panels on my roof and we're doing well. I think it is so complex and multidimensional when it comes to that E element. And due to the way that there are so many different standards and frameworks in place in terms of how to report on these different elements, it really does help turning to an advisor who has been trained and is a specialist in understanding the needs of the hotel industry in combination with the frameworks that are out there in order to create a proper ESG framework and reporting system for the hotels, because also no two hotels are the same. So it's really important to keep that in mind, because you wouldn't go scuba diving without going training first. So it's the same.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Please don't. So I think the same falls into these type of new elements that are coming into business. You're not just going to run into something with the hope that you get it right, because we're seeing big, let's say, greenwashing and huge articles coming out about what certain companies think that they're doing, and actually they're not doing it, and they're actually in contradiction of the frameworks and standards that are out there. And eventually the penalties will be very high for non-compliance or not being in line with the right frameworks and standards. So, and that's the last thing you want your stakeholders or your shareholders to hear of. So yeah, very important to make sure that you partner with the right person in this.
Absolutely. So David, how's Radisson doing in terms of ESG? You are operating like a vast amount of hotels globally, so that must be a challenge.
I would say that since the days of Carlson Residor and even Radisson SAS back in the day, the companies had a very strong position on sustainability. You know, and having rebranded as Radisson Hotel Group, we created 3 pillars. It was basically think people, think community, think planet. Which kind of what we already kind of builds into the ESG ethos. You know, I would say that I have some stats here that's always interesting. Is that in the last 10 years, RSG has reduced its average energy and water footprint by 30%. We've set an ambitious 30% carbon reduction target for the next 5 years. And we have an ambition to have become net zero by 2050. And these are all publicly stated ambitions. We also would have noticed that the Radisson is a leading member of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, which we're one of the leaders, the key leaders. I think there's some other hotel companies as part of that as well. So I think to be able to, what Alexa was saying is that to be able to make these initiatives work, the hotel companies themselves have to believe it, not just say it. It has to be part of their actual heritage and their actual culture, which we have. Then that has to come into the actual properties you're signing or the properties you're converting, be they lease, be they managed, be they franchise, be they tower block in the city centre or a sprawling 50-hectare resort. It's got to be the same principled approach. We have many owners now who are already, which is some brand new hotels, they want full certification immediately. They don't want to wait, they want to be part of it. So I think all the steps that we're taking are, like everyone, small steps, but again, as part of our heritage, it's there, and we have to deliver as well. There are so many other hotel sustainability basics that we bring into our day-to-day life in the hotel.
To me, it sounds very, very, very good. and but
I'm not expert
Alexa,
on it. I'm also trying to, but we all have to become experts on it. That's the point.
yes. So to me, it sounds great, but I would like to ask Alexa to confirm if these goals are good goals.
So, and I think it comes back to your statement, David, is that it's small steps. It's putting that understanding at the core belief of the business. And those are the initial steps that need to be taken, particularly with something that is coming hard and fast at a lot of different industries. The first steps you have to do is educate, so understanding. Then you have to integrate. So you have to put it into your business plan. It has to be into your growth plan. And then the last step is making sure that the elements and understandings that the hotels are looking at, such as the certain elements that you've noted, fall in line with whatever the international requirements and frameworks are. So 100%, it's an important, care's an important aspect in this, because at the end of the day, ESG and sustainability reporting is here for one reason, and that's because we need to preserve the things we are so quickly using up today for future generations. And that's where sustainable development comes from. So what we do today is going to not impact us, but impact our children's children. And that's it. It's long-term thinking. So it's lovely to hear that the Radisson has put in publicly stated sustainability elements. And I think that it's a great indication of what's to come from the hotel industry, particularly if you're able to sit here and reiterate those and provide your reduction in your certain ESG elements. That's something that makes us really hopeful to see.
But one thing that I'm seeing a lot of in the US related to ESG is people are really looking to go to a place that focuses on it and are willing to spend extra money. There was a survey that I had read that 70% of people are willing to spend more money to go to somewhere that is marketed the fact. So I think the marketing dollars in marketing the aspect of ESG is going to be important. And that's where maybe the costs are going to increase. But I think COVID pushed to the forefront savings and obviously other aspects, whether it's, not cleaning rooms as much, not fixing, not restocking shampoo and conditioner, but it's also given them the ability to say, hey, we're, a little bit more cost conscious. We're not laundering as much and we're not washing the towels. And this is all sustainable, which is given a quick ability to hit some of that environmental, but it's going to be the marketing of it because people are really looking to, and not worried about spending extra. They want locally sourced food. They want the experience. They want it all to be following exactly what Alexa and David said on the ESG side. So it's interesting how that's definitely pushed that to the forefront and how there's been a little bit of a shift and people are willing to spend more for it.
100%. And I think, Jen, just to finalize on that comment is that when we talk ESG or sustainability, the one thing that must never be forgotten is that when you become ESG compliant or a sustainability conscious business, it doesn't mean that profits are going to drop and bottom line is going to suffer. Right. And the Moore Global Network has worked with various industries regarding ESG initiatives, and we have seen an increase in profits, an increase in staff morale, where companies actually take into those elements and embed them in the business. So it's not a toss-up between sustainable and bottom line or sustainable and profit. So that's a very important factor that needs to be reiterated, because being in line with the ESG requirements or providing ESG reporting doesn't mean that you're not going to make money, because we all know we want to make money and a little bit extra money so I can go visit the Radissons around the world. So very important, yeah. And marketing is going to obviously help with that as well.
Great. Thank you all. And I just want to say that it was fantastic to have a global brand, a global ESG advisor, an auditor partner, and a hotel advisor at the same table, talking to each other. And I would like to invite our viewers to get in touch with any of us and also to visit moreglobal.com. And thank you very much and see you soon. Goodbye.